about comics. Let's talk about comics. Let's talk about comics. Harambe friends, it's Charles here with another video. And today I'm going to do something different. Not a review, but I want to start a series, Why Comic Books? And I want to tell you the reasons why you should be reading comic books and what sets them apart from other forms of media. Pardon me. Now, this first edition of Why Comic Books is going to be all about finances. Now, hang with me. We're going to take a little detour here into my personal life. But outside of comic book collecting and action figure collecting, my main passion is music. Performing music. I play guitar, bass, drums, piano, ukulele, a couple other things, not as well. And while I'm not a big name professional musician, I am a respected local musician, which I take pride in that. And that being said, I can tell you that a lot of the frustrations with music is that a lot of us feel like the best musicians aren't getting spotlighted. And that is a fact. Some of the absolute best musicians I've ever seen have been in small auditoriums or small bars playing for hundreds, not thousands. And then you have pop stars who fill out tens of thousands. And the irony is that when you talk about skill level, it's a good chance that the people in that backing band for that pop star are incredible musicians themselves that put out their own albums and have their own bands. But they make their main money from playing with this pop star, and that's because money drives what the big companies put out. And with comic books, you have less money in the game. Again, back to my personal life, the biggest gig I've probably played, two different bands. I've done it twice. The Fireworks Festival in my local town, and it's up at the big event center that we have, and the whole city's focus is on that place. And like I said, I played it two times. The money was good, the crowd was big, but what I was doing was playing the stuff that you would hear on the radio, your classic rock, your pop, boring stuff. To me, anyway, there was no improvisation. It was just playing good music that people want to hear, and it was mass produced. But if you really want to hear me, it's going to be at gigs where I make half as much or even a quarter as much plus tips in a small coffee shop with my jazz trio. And on those gigs, I'm playing with the best musicians I know. And we are improvising and doing heavy stuff that we just don't make money for. And the great thing about comics is, unlike movies where you have, in between the creator and yourself, you have producers, you have money men, you have writers, you have companies wanting to push their own aspects into your creation. You have sponsors wanting to put advertisements into your creation. And then when you get past all of that, you have directors and actors. And with every filter, you lose a little bit more of that original creator's intention. And a lot of times that produces great cinema. But more times than not, it produces a mess. There's a reason why you have so many movies that come out, they get critically panned, and you get a director's cut, or you get an extended, or, it's because there are too many chefs in the kitchen. But with comic books, you have your writer, and they usually pick the artist, they pick the letterer, and it is a very small group of people putting their hands into this project that isn't expected to make millions, if not billions of dollars. These books, they sell for anywhere from $3.99 to $5.99 nowadays. And so you can get a copy of Thundercats, like this book right here, I think it's $4.99. $4.99, and it probably cost a couple of bucks to make, if that. And it may go up in value even. But what we have here is, you look at the creative team And on the front cover, it's just two names, Declan Shaw, Chalvet and Drew Moss. And then let's look on the inside and see who else is credited with this. So yeah, we have 6 names credited here. Declan Chevrolet, Drew Moss, Martina Pignandoli, Jeff Eckleberry, Lucio Perillo, who did the cover. I love his covers, by the way. He is my favorite cover artist. Back to the topic at hand. And Nate Cosby. So you have, the writer, Declan Chauvet, and there are only 5 other people that get to filter out his creation. And so we get to see, the best, probably the closest interpretation of what he intended. A great parallel going back to my music. I have a song that I wrote called Rocky Mountain Skunk Ape, and it is a simple tune. It's kind of a folksy blues jazz tune, and it is the hardest tune that I've ever tried to get a band to play, and it's not because it's complex, because it's not. The most complex parts are the interplay between the bass and the guitar. The drums are easy, but every drummer I've tried to get it, the better the drummer, the worse it comes out. Because the rhythm is just boom, clap, boom, clap. That's how it starts off. Just bass, hi hat, boom, boom, boom. And you get a highly educated jazz drummer. They want to throw that swing on there. They want to do something else. They want to, start shuffling right away. They keep trying to add what, they feel like what I'm saying is not what's supposed to be happening, even though it's my creation. And the best it's ever sounded, the best recording of it was with a relatively young drummer who was new to jazz, but had an open mind and, was willing to learn from cats. I showed him the rhythm. I told him I wanted him to play. He played exactly that and killed it. And so that's another reason why. And then you look at, books as a couple of examples here that I pulled out. Probably the greatest example of money not getting on the way of creation is the Boom Studios We Only Find Them When They're Dead series. It's a series about people traveling space looking for these giants, these gods that have passed away, and they harvest them. And it's a great story. I think you can get the first, I think there are about 3 or 4 volumes in trade paperback. But when you see these giants, they feel massive. They feel overwhelming. It feels epic. And I was talking to a friend who I got into comics via this series, and she was like, "Could you imagine them doing that with a major motion picture?" And really, in a major motion picture, even if you're going to do CGI giants, the scale of these things is the ships that do the harvesting might be as big as the eyeball of these things. That's going to be a lot of money and a lot of hands putting their opinions, their thoughts, their desires into that. And it's going to be watered down and who knows what else. Or you can get, great initiatives like, Image Comics, the Horizon Experiment, which gives smaller writers chances to reimagine familiar tropes with minority characters, or the Marvel Voices Heritage, which features minority characters, or things like Kill Train. This right here, if it's not a movie here soon, I would be surprised. The trailer, they actually shot it like it was a big budget movie. And even the book itself, it feels slick, it feels sleek. And you get exactly what the author is going for. And can you imagine, expecting to put out something polished and futuristic, with the whole city as a backdrop, with an unknown writer or a smaller writer, and giving them $1 million budget to take a chance on something like that? It's not going to happen. And with comic books, it's only limited by the imagination of the creative team. And so that's number one, episode 1 of Why Comic Books. It's not going to be tainted by money. It's not going to be too many hands in the process. And really, people think of comic books, at least I did, as one thing. And I always thought the comic books kind of stagnated in the 80s, 90s, 70s. And you come to find out that as entertainment and society progress, so do comics in their style, in their delivery, in their presentation. And so there's always going to be something for you. And I say this, and I will put money on it. If you have not found a comic book you like, it's not because it's not out there. You just haven't found it yet. So you guys be easy. Thank you for giving me some of your time, and I'll see you next time with more reviews and discussions on nerd culture and comic books and action figures. You guys be easy.